great experience. Looking forward to what Ryan and the team at the Ink Factory come up with. Where I'm going to start is, this is about how do we help you reach peak performance via coaching that you receive as well as coaching that you're going to give to your team. So this will be a fast-paced, moving around, talking about best practices in coaching, ideas to try, and the ability to put this into action. So you can see real quick, this is the business that I run. It's Voltage Leadership Consulting. You can see we do some various activities, and I'm really excited to be here with you today, having been in the lab industry and working with you, many of you across the country and many of you across the world. We've hosted workshops anywhere from Roanoke to Abu Dhabi. As you can see here, I'm getting coached some from my friend Omar. We're getting ready to go dune bashing right outside Abu Dhabi. Some of you may recognize it from the recent Star Wars movie. This is where they filmed a lot of it, the Star Wars. And I'm going to be coached on how to jump over those major hills. And I am honestly a little scared there, but luckily Omar is a great coach and is teaching me how to do it. But first, we had to have some hands-on coaching, as you can see here. So Omar had to get the camels off the road so we could get there. Some of you, I'm sure, feel this way when you're trying to lead your teams. It can feel like leading a herd of camels. We're going to give you a few ideas on the best way to motivate and engage your team today. But it has been a great experience working with Cleveland Clinic, Abu Dhabi. They've just opened a new hospital there. We were able to do a serving leader program and get to teach coaching and leadership skills in a new part of the world, and they have 3,300 people now trained and operating in Abu Dhabi. So let's start with you now. Why should I trust you? This is a great question. One of the things that may keep you from training and coaching your team right now is there's a gap between what your folks feel and how much they are trusting you with their career, with their ideas, with their dreams, hopes, and aspirations. So why should the people that you are coaching trust you? Do you trust your leader? If so, why or why not? Another question I might have for you is, why are you not coaching your team right now? Many of you, I know the first answer is going to be time. I know how busy you are. I've worked in the labs. I see you guys. I understand the challenges. Do more with less. Go faster. Hey, we got new certifications we got to get done. There's Joint Commission coming in, or CAP is coming in for inspection. But if you're not coaching right now, somebody is looking to take your talent. They're going to need it in their organization. And so coaching will allow you to be able to connect with your team, keep them motivated and engaged. My other question for you is, why are you not getting coached? It's good enough for athletes, piano players, artists, singers, all get coached. Why do we not take the time to get coached? So a lot of times it will come down to this issue of trust. Am I ready to trust you with my career, my hopes, my dreams, my concerns? So who do you trust? Well, for some, they trust Fox News. That's where they go to get their information. Where do the people that are on your team go to get their information? In our house, we trust Fox News for things like the debates. My kids think of them for things like American Idol, football, and back in the old days for me, maybe 24. How about CNN? Who trusts CNN? For me, I always think back to early days of CNN and their war coverage in 1991. I also travel a lot internationally, and so for me, a lot of times, it's going to be that international traveler. CNN is that place where I can go and feel like I've gotten real good information about the United States. Who do you trust? It could be your boss. Maybe you trust Warren Buffett for your financial advice. Maybe it's Oprah Winfrey for influence. Maybe it is a leader in your community. Maybe it's a former boss. But at some point, you've trusted somebody with your hopes and dreams, with your desires. That's the start for a coaching relationship, is trust. And so I really want you to think about, who do you trust and why do you trust them? The first resource that I'm going to offer to you is a book called Thanks for the Feedback, The Science and Art of Receiving Feedback Well. This is from Doug Stone and Sheila Hahn. You may recognize Doug Stone from the book Difficult Conversation. And what they talk about in the book is that feedback is really three different things with different purposes. The first is appreciation. This is about how do you motivate and encourage. The second is coaching. This helps increase knowledge, skill, capabilities. It'll help you grow, and it raises good feelings in the relationships. The third is evaluation. Evaluation is telling you where do you stand, aligning expectations, and making sure that you are able to make good decisions and know where your decision making is allowed to go. So again, it's the ACE model: appreciation, coaching, and evaluation. We'll cover it in some more detail as we go throughout the presentation. What I want you to understand, though, is that evaluation, as you can imagine, that's the one with the loudest voice. It can drown out the other two. And so we always can understand that part of our job as leaders is to give evaluation. And we are supposed to be there to help our team understand how they're performing. And that's a valuable resource, because before I can really be coached, I have to know how I'm doing. What matters, though, is what is your mindset as you go into the coaching? Are you going into the coaching thinking, I'm going to correct the people that work for me. I'm going to make sure that they know what they're doing is wrong. If you're going into a relationship, a conversation with that kind of attitude, then you're probably going to get a lot of defensiveness, and the coaching's not going to work very well. So what we talk about trying to encourage you with coaching is, instead of that's wrong, shift to an attitude of sharing what you're seeing, but wanting them to say, tell me more about how I can get better. So maybe the question should be, here's what I'm seeing. Tell me about when you've been at your best. What can I do as your leader to help you be at your best more consistently? So really it's about having the right conversation with the right people at the right time and the right intent. We'll play with that concept a little bit more in a couple slides. Moving on, this is the first model of the day. And so this is, how do you really understand peak performance and gain the most out of your high potential people that are on your staff? And gang, that's everybody. Everybody that you hire has potential, and you've got the ability to grow and develop them. And I want you to think back to when you hired them. You were so excited about the potential of this person joining the organization. In the first 30 to 60 days, you stayed so connected with them. You were helping them understand expectations. You probably recognized their efforts some. You maybe even gave them feedback and refined their performance. But then you get busy, they get busy, and sometimes we slip. And so what we're asking you to think about is, when you've got someone on your team, have you done all of these? So let's go through the model in a little more detail. We'll be referring back to this model throughout the rest of the presentation. So next, our goal is to have motivated and engaged employees. As I travel around the U.S. speaking, I hear this all the time. Jeff, my folks just don't seem to be that motivated. How do you deal with a person that doesn't seem to be motivated? How do I make sure that they stay motivated? How do I make sure that they stay with our company? How can I get my engagement scores up? Well, let's look at this slide. At the bottom is really where we need to start. And it's, how do I work? So what we're looking for are, what are the goals for my role? What are the tools that I need to do the job? What are the things that matter? Do I understand that? If I don't understand that, it's really hard for me to understand and buy into your vision. Once I understand the consequences, understand the goals, then I can perform for you. If you move to the next level, you can see that the motivation and engagement starts to get better. Once I know my goals and move up, is someone recognizing me? Are you giving me praise? Do you give me the opportunity to try some new things? Does it seem like you care? If I start to see that, then I'm ready for feedback from you, because I know you care about me. I know you care about me doing a good job, and I'm ready to succeed. Further, how do I contribute? Do I have influence around what we do around here? Am I allowed some ownership? So many of the labs I work with, they're now doing Lean and 5S events. And what the benefit of that is we go and we ask employees, what is it that we can do around here to make our organization run more smoothly? And we ask for their input. And so at the end of a day where we've done 5S and had a lean intervention, the employees came up with the solutions, get the buy-in, get it implemented, and start using a new process the very next day in the lab. They go back to the bench excited. And the reason for that is they saw that they had some ownership, some say, and they're able to build relationships with peers that they couldn't have done before that. When you're able to do that, the organization moves forward. And now I am ready to grow with you. So when you ask me about what it is that my career goals are, if I'm thinking about going into a management role, I'm going to look and say, have you built trust with me through these other levels? Have you given me clear goals? Have you recognized me? Have you let me have a chance to contribute? And now I'm ready to work with you and to really be coached. A quick story from my own experience. I was a leader at Capital One, and one of the things that happened was a door needed to be fixed. The CEO was coming to the company to do a town hall, and I was so excited about it. You know, we've got about 2,500 employees I'm responsible for, and the CEO has taken time out of his day to come to us. The week before, he'd been on Business Week magazine's front cover about one of the most exciting places to work. So I've got everyone prepped. I've shared the vision. Here's what we're going to do, and there's going to be all kind of growth and excitement for you. Wait till you hear from Rich. And so he gives a lovely presentation, and he opens it up like I will do at the end to some questions. And the very first question that they asked was, when can we get the door fixed? I was like mortified. I'm like, oh my gosh. He went on, he answered the question, and we had a conversation afterwards. I found him and just said, Rich, I'm really sorry about that. He goes, Jeff, this is a great leadership opportunity for you. If you can get the door fixed, they'll buy into your vision. But it's the little things that matter. And so think about in the lab. Do you have good benches? Do they have the equipment that they need? For some that wear scrubs, do they like their scrubs? The first time we went into one of our labs that we had acquired, that was the first thing they asked for. They said, we don't like the color of the scrubs. So before they bought the vision that we were sharing, they need to know that we cared about them. So go to the bottom, and do you help them understand their roles and then start to move up? That's the basis of coaching relationship. So what's my role? Where do I fit in? Again, give me clear expectations, give me the resources to do my job, and help me understand how I fit into the culture. Because I want to do a good job around here, but I need to know what matters. So make sure you fill in for me what matters, what you care about, what are the key behaviors. I want to do the behaviors for you, but I got to know what you care about. And I got to see you role model them. If I see you role model them, then I know how to fit in and I know how to make a difference here. Next, make sure I know my authority. What are my responsibilities? What decisions can I make? I will tell you that there's an excellent book out there that if you need some help setting some clear goals and being able to really help get down to specific expectations, it's a book called Winning with Accountability. I'll repeat that. Winning with Accountability. And it's a great tool for setting expectations, getting employees to understand what they need to do, and being able to have a clear understanding of the goals and how to reward the goals. So again, Winning with Accountability by Henry Evans. So my final thought on this slide would be, resistance is often just a lack of clarity. Resistance is just a lack of clarity. And so if you're seeing resistance, the first time, instead of you thinking that that's a them problem, I would have you look and say, have I given them clear expectations? Have I given them the tools to know how to do the job? Have I sat down with them and really explained what matters around here, how we're going to measure it, how are they going to be assessed at the end of the year, end of the quarter, end of the week? Until I know that, I may wait because I don't want to mess something up. And so if you're seeing some resistance, try to go back to some clear expectations. Ultimately, if you've given them clear expectations and then there's resistance, we'll talk about some ways that we can overcome that later in the presentation. The next part is, do you appreciate me? If you can see on the slide here, the brain is lighting up. This is an actual brain, and it's showing the parts of the brain, when I get recognized, how it lights up. I call it lighting up the Christmas tree. We all have folks that, you know, when you've given them the compliment, you can just see them, excitement, and the joy that they have. One of my daughters, you know, she will blush. So all feedback is a gift, But it's not a gift that's easily received. No matter whether we fight it or we blush or warm up, all feedback will be stuff that will have an impact on us, whether it's our brain, our body. But you know, we really do like to get positive recognition. What's the right amount, you may be asking? A 5-to-1 ratio is the right amount. So 5 for every negative comment. Unfortunately, most organizations are at a 1-to-1, so it's 1 positive statement for every negative statement. Unfortunately, in healthcare, many of our organizations are at 2 negative for every positive. So again, the ratio is 5 positive for 1 negative. Some of you may be saying, gosh, Jeff, that seems really Pollyannish. People do make mistakes. Absolutely. And here's the deal. We're good at recognizing those. We have a hard time taking a moment to be able to recognize folks. And I get it. A lot of you are busy and may not have the time you feel like. So a couple of tips. 1, be authentic. Don't give them a feedback on just something like, okay, wow, I really appreciate that you moved X to Y, when that's just something really basic. No, really be authentic. Set up a plan. Maybe it's an Excel spreadsheet where you go in and say, how much feedback have you given to each person this week? Put some time on your calendar to walk around the lab and to give positive feedback. You can give corrective feedback at the same time, but be really intentional. Another idea is have your people, whether it's your direct reports, your technicians, or your supervisors, send you an email each week saying something positive that's happened on your team. It gives you a great chance to be able to walk out of your area, go to the lab, and be able to say thanks for something that's gone well. It will do an amazing amount for your motivation and engagement. Another resource to check out, they've got some videos on YouTube as well as a book, is called the Carrot Principle. Again, it's the Carrot Principle. And basically, their feedback says that people say that 64% of the people surveyed said they had not had a positive recognition in the past year. Now, it probably did happen that they had the recognition, but their feeling was they had not been recognized throughout the past year, probably because there was so much negative recognition that it drowned the positive. So again, 5 positive for every negative. Put it on the calendar, pull up on the bench, and sit next to someone and give some feedback. Next, this moves into the evaluation phase. Will you review with me what's going right? What have I done correctly? And what do I need to do differently? Another great way of asking this is, are there things I need to start doing, stop doing, and continue? Really be specific, and I would tell you, have the courage to be direct. Too many of the leaders I work with, especially in healthcare, we like to really take care of folks in healthcare, want to kind of water it down. The more direct you can be and being honest with them, the better the chance. Now, that doesn't mean being mean. That's being direct and being able to share the feedback in a direct manner so that your intent is to build them up, not tear them down. But by being direct, they know exactly what they need to do. A great question to talk to the person about is, here's what I see you doing really well, and the more often you can do this, the better we will be. Then asking them, how is it that you can do your best work on a more regular basis? How can you do your best work on a more regular basis? See what they come up with, and then build from that. Moving to the next slide, which type of feedback do you provide more often? So there's 3 types: appreciation, evaluation, and coaching. In evaluation and coaching, what we find is that many of our leaders, they spend so much time in evaluation that we never quite get to coaching. So the difference is, on this presentation, if you're seeing me live, I like to talk with my hands. And so the evaluation would be, Jeff, you spent 27% of your time with your hands flying everywhere, and it was distracting. So luckily I'm not on video this one, so you don't see the hands flying around. Coaching would be, Jeff, I noticed that you use your hands a lot when you speak. What would you like to do to improve your performance around how you use your hands? The evaluation is important. I need to know where I stand. But if that's all I ever get from you is evaluation, after a while I feel beat down. So is your intent to build me up, or is your intent to tear me down? When you have coaching, I move from the evaluation phase to, okay, now that we know how you stand, Let's work on building you up. What can we do to help you get stronger at this? How can I help you be better? If you're working with your leader, your question to your boss or your leader could be, okay, I appreciate the evaluation. Can you help me think through some ways that I can get better at this? Can we brainstorm some ways and then put together a plan? It's becoming a partnership now. And in that partnership, it allows me to trust you and allows us to be able to form the kind of relationship where I can get the feedback, get some evaluation, but also to move myself forward. When you help me improve my performance, what's going to happen is I'm going to trust you with, here's what I'd like to do, here's where I see myself in the lab, and be able to grow my skills, which leads to, again, greater collaboration. Or, as the slide says, coaching is a collaboration. Help me refine what I'm doing and change. So a question I have for you is, are you in the mode of almost a competition with your employees? Are you in a spot where you're nervous that they may take your job? Or are you nervous that they may be better at you than on some aspects of the role? What I'd ask you to do is suspend that. You know what? You should be hiring people that are smarter, more talented than you. Why? Because that will push you. It will give you the capacity to maybe work on the next big thing, the next process to put in place, and the next idea. Maybe it's time to bring lean into your lab so that you can make the lab jump forward. Maybe it's that partnership with the blood bank so that you can better serve your patients. But if you are always trying to be the smartest person in the room and view it as a competition with your direct reports, very hard to build trust, very hard for you to be able to connect, and it will keep your folks from being able to get engaged and motivated. So start to look and say, as I'm getting ready to go have a coaching and feedback conversation with my direct reports, am I in the mode of coming and to give criticism, to correct, or am I coming in a place with my intent is, yes, I have some feedback, but I want to talk about what's going right, and I want to talk about how do we help you get stronger and better, and here are a couple things I'm noticing. There are two very different ways of coming at it. And the best partnerships and the ways I trust you is when it's a collaboration. You give me feedback what I'm doing well, and you help me grow my skills. So, are you allowing your employee to learn? Or are you letting them grow? Some of you say, well, gosh, Jeff, when do I have time, and does it have to be formal? Do I have to go to an office? And the answer is no. Coaching doesn't have to be formal. You can absolutely pull up to the bench and have a conversation. Some of the best coaching is absolutely going to happen there. If you go all the way back to Omar with me in the desert there, his coaching right before I was getting into the four-wheeler helped me really calm down. Additionally, him showing how to move camels helped me understand when I was dealing with a camel later that day. So some hands-on coaching at the desk or at the bench, absolutely a wonderful thing to do. So be willing to pull up the bench, have a conversation. What I would ask you to think about, though, is what is your intent? And so as you are coming to give that feedback, again, is your intent to help build the person up, to be able to show them a few things that if they do this a little better, they're going to be great? Are you also taking some time to recognize them for a job well done? So again, going backwards, do you have some ideas of the work that they've done so you can celebrate it? You can also always have a coffee, go for a chat, be able to maybe take a walk outside. Kill two birds with one stone. I know many of you are in wellness programs. Some of my best coaching sessions are in 15 and 20-minute walks because we're not always face-to-face, and it makes it a little less intense. So be willing to think about coaching in new and different places. Here's a tool that I think will help you as you start the conversations. So this is called the structural tension model. A really good book that highlights this model is called The Power of TED. And it's got things like the dreaded drama triangle in it and the empowerment dynamic. I won't go into that into detail today. There's not enough time. But one of the models I do like from it is the structural tension model. And basically, this is how you can start a coaching session, a team meeting, a project review. Look at the top. What is the ideal state? Another way of asking that is, what is your desired outcome? What is it that we're hoping to accomplish in our one-on-one together, in our time together, in the team meeting, in the project review. We then go down to what's the current reality. Where are we now in relation to our desired outcome? The current reality could be, gosh, we're days behind. It could be, we're only at 97% efficiency in the lab and our goal is 98.2%. So how are we going to get there? What I know is that we're really good at the current reality conversation. We struggle to start with the conversation around what's been working well, what is our desired outcome. So a challenge for you would be, can you start a coaching session with what's our desired outcome, or a team meeting with what's the desired outcome for the team today, instead of coming with your own agenda. So think about this. The reason the rubber band's there, let me explain it. If you can just picture a rubber band being pulled between my two thumbs, the top thumb is the desired outcome. What's the ideal state? The bottom thumb is what is the current reality. So I can just picture that Ryan and the team from Ink Factory is drawing away crazy some rubber bands and wondering where I'm going. But stay with me. So the top is the ideal state. If I let my thumb go on the bottom of the rubber band, I get rid of current reality. So if I only have ideal state, the challenge with that is that that's all vision. That's all talk. And we never get down to the practical. How are we going to do this differently in our lab? How are we going to get to the 98% quality measure that we're hoping for? Now, the flip of that is we pull the rubber band again, but we get rid of the top part. We get rid of the desired outcomes, and we only have current reality. This is many of the labs, many of the healthcare, and truthfully, non-health organizations I work with. We are all stuck in current reality. The downside of that is we only do the transactional things. So a lot of our one-on-ones just deal with what's happened in the last day, 2 days. We never get to the transformational. What are the possibilities? What's the ideal state? And so we really want tension, but we want to ease the tension. So the way to do that is ask these questions. So after we've established desired outcome, current reality, we then ask the question, what are our assets, resources? What are our strengths? What's working well? And that's not to say there's not barriers. You can see that on the right-hand side. What barriers may be hindering us? Great. Well, how do we leverage our strengths to overcome those barriers? And let's put some baby steps in place. So if you think about a coaching session, we go from our desired outcome to here's our current reality. Okay, well, let's talk about how do we close that gap. When have we done that well, and how do we change that? So ultimately, we're able to have a conversation about baby steps. That's a coaching session. It's also really good at reinforcing asset-based thinking. How do we reinforce our strengths and our possibilities and not get so hung up on some of our challenges and the current reality? So again, this is a great tool to try maybe in your next one-on-one. Let's talk about one-on-ones and some best practices. So you can see a bunch of bubbles here. I'm just going to walk through a few of my key points here. Many of the folks that I coach, they say, Jeff, I really want to do this, but I don't know how. Well, let's start with the primary focus should be on the employee. Too often what happens is we, the leader, come in and drive our own agenda. It's all about our desired outcomes. Hey, it's okay. Sometimes it should be about us, and sometimes you need it to be about you. But again, coaching is a collaboration. And so if you can come in and say, okay, Erica, what is your desired outcome from our time together? And she lists off 3 things. And I say, great, I've got about 2 things I'd like to cover. Looks like we've got plenty for our time today. Where do you want to start? You can see that you're giving them some ownership of this time. It's a 50-50 partnership. It's not just coming to the boss and reporting out. It's now a partnership. But make sure that you're understanding what the employee hopes to get out of it. Because they've been thinking about this one-on-one maybe all week, maybe all month, and now they're finally ready to come and talk to you. And so if you come in with your own agenda and don't ask any questions, they're going to walk out demotivated and not engaged. Another thing to watch for is making sure it's regular. Best practices is weekly. Now, some of you have so many direct reports that may not be practical, so you may have to split up. Maybe your supervisors or leads can help with some of the regular one-on-ones. Again, it doesn't always have to be scheduled in an office. It could be that that one-on-one is by the bench, and that may be the best way that you can handle it. But do try to get some privacy from time to time to take on some deeper issues. Watch rescheduling, though, because what happens often is that you're busy. An important meeting comes up. Something didn't go right overnight. And next thing you know, you've just bumped 3 of your one-on-ones. Well, I may have been waiting all week or 2 weeks waiting for this conversation, and I'm so excited. I've told my, in my case, Beth, my wife, that morning that I'm going to have the conversation with my boss. And so then you bump me. You can just see what's happening to my motivation, my engagement. So making sure that really try to honor and don't reschedule. Next is be present, and this is really being present. This isn't checking your 2 different smartphones. This isn't looking back at the data that's on your computer. This isn't seeing who's in the hallway. This is putting those things down and really having a one-on-one conversation. If you're looking to save time, lots of you schedule one-on-ones for an hour or 45 minutes, but then you're distracted. A really great one-on-one can be 20 minutes of 10-10 time with each person, and if you can put away the distractions, it will be able to go quickly. So are you really present? Are you really looking at them eye to eye and having the conversation? Follow-up well seems pretty self-explanatory, but you take a lot of notes, and if you commit to actions, make sure you take those actions. Again, a trust breaker is, I left you with a couple things to do and you didn't follow through. I start to wonder if you really care about me. So if you commit to doing something, make sure you do it. This next 10-10 concept is, it should really be about 10 minutes of them talking, and about 10 minutes of you talking, and maybe about 10 minutes of developmental, so that higher level conversation. And so if you find yourself doing 80% of the talking, you're missing out on the core concept of the one-on-one. And if they're all transactional and only business, and there's never what are your hopes and dreams, then after a while I wonder if you really care about me. Do you really care about where I'm in the organization? And so making sure you get to that developmental conversation. To help you get to that developmental conversation, the next slide can help in that coaching conversation. So once you've established goals and expectations, and you've helped me understand what to do, you've given me some recognition, you've given me some evaluation of how I've performed, I've accepted the feedback, I've grown, I've developed, I'm ready to really be in that coaching relationship with you. And so this model is one that I use still in my coaching practice. It's called the I Grow model. The first is, what's the intention? What are both you and the other person coming into the meeting hoping for? So really for you as a coach, you should declare in your own mind before you get there, what is your intention? What are you hoping to achieve in your own mind? Then we should probably have some sort of goal that we're working on long term. So it may be, I'm working on getting better at budgeting. Maybe I'm working on my influence and how to get some of my ideas accepted by other parts of the lab. Or maybe it's, I'm going to branch out and I have a goal of growing and I'm going to need to partner with the nurses in the hospital. And so being able to say, what is the goal that we're really talking about? The next step is reality. So what's been happening? What am I seeing? Here's the progress I've made. What are options that, given that reality, what are the options of, what are the possibilities? And then finally, what's next? And the what's next is, what's the next action I'm going to take? Let me just give you a concrete example from my days at working in a healthcare system. For directors to be able to be a director in our healthcare organization, you had to have a master's degree. So I came in knowing that the person I was talking to did not have their master's degree, but they had a desire to move up through the organization. So as I was sitting down to coach Joyce, the intention was, how can I help her achieve her goals? And her goal was she wanted to be a director in the next 6 months. We then went to the reality and said, well, Joyce, let's talk about that. You need to be having your master's before you can be a director, so is 6 months realistic? Tell me what you've done to start the program. Well, I haven't done anything. Well, then reality is we probably can't get there. She goes, oh, well, that really is no fun. Look, coaching isn't always easy. I had to be honest with her and tell her that's not going to happen in 6 months. So instead, we came up with some options saying, what is the best path for her? And we were able to find a night and weekend kind of program. She worked days where she was going to be able to complete her master's in 18 months. Her next step was to go research and come back at our next session, be able to say exactly what she had done and which schools did she think were best going to fit her, and then could the system I was in afford to pay for that. So that's an example that conversation really only took about 10 or 12 minutes, but she left empowered, inspired, and she walked away with the work to do. So it's a sample of how you can use the I Grow method. On the next page, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. This is a leave behind. But as you're trying to discover the reality, these are just questions that you might want to explore. And so when you're sitting down to do that first one, you might be a little nervous about how to do the session. So what I want to do is just leave you with some questions. My favorite question probably out of this is, what have you tried already? What actions, what difference did those actions make? I want to understand what they've tried. I don't want to assume anything. I want to hear their own. It also helps me understand how committed are they. Have they started to try to do some things, and are they committed to their own growth and development? So for that person that is not motivated, doesn't seem to want to do anything, this is one of those tests, a litmus test, to say, well, let's talk about what you've tried. What are your ideas? If they don't do anything between your first conversation and the second one, give them a second chance. But notice and just say, here's what I noticed. You seem to be very excited, but I don't see any action. For me to continue to give you the coaching time and me to be able to really help you, you're going to have to take responsibility for that. If they continue to not do that, then you start to have to ask the question, are they right for the organization? Because each person needs to be getting better year over year. You have to get better year over year, and if they're not getting there, you may have to deliver a tough message saying, we got to get better. So again, as you're sitting down to do your coaching session for the first time, there's some great questions here. Another set of questions that I really like can both be feedback for yourself, but feedback for the folks you're coaching. What do you need to start doing, and what do you need to stop doing? And so asking them, how can I help best support you? You can ask them, what do I need to start doing to support you better? What is it that I need to stop doing so that I can be a more effective leader and coach for you? But you can also ask them the same question. What is it that they need to start doing so that they can be the best person on your team that they can be? This builds off the lean. You can also obviously do the continue. But being able to sit down and have this kind of conversation starts to build that trust. Then if you're able to go and actually do some research for them on maybe the school of their choice, maybe it's getting them exposed to another part of the organization, they're going to start to buy into you and trust some of your ideas. The hardest part is often getting started. So the best suggestion I have is sketch out your first coaching session. How do you get started? Well, you're going to have to practice. So start with a strong employee. Again, sketch out what it is that you want to talk about. Maybe even have the person have the structural tension model. I use that often in my coaching sessions with leaders and with teams. And what I will do is I'll actually give them the structural tension model and say, let's just walk through this together. What is your desired outcome? What do you hope to get out of this time that we're going to have together? What do you hope to get out of this year if you're kicking off the performance review? Then you can say, great, what's the current reality? So check in around, do you understand the expectations? Do you have the tools to do your job? Do you know what matters around here? Do you get regular feedback? What do you need me to start doing and stop doing? See how it all starts to come together. Then as they are starting to think about that, make sure you highlight some of the strengths you see and why you think they can do what their goal is. That's the positive recognition. Then when there's barriers, and they say, well, I can't get to it because maybe there's not funding for this, or there's not X or Y or Z, saying, okay, let's brainstorm. What are some possibilities? So again, that helps them show that they've got some ownership, say, and influence here. And then you can say, you can give ideas. A coach can brainstorm, give ideas. Ultimately, you want to go with the idea that the employee is the most excited about, though, and not your idea. If you find yourself always giving advice, then that's probably in the role of advice giver. And you're probably not in coaching. You should probably be in the space where you're giving suggestions, asking questions, but they choose the course of action. And so that ultimately, they're the ones that declare, this is my next set of action steps. And your wrap-up question should be, what is it that you need from me to help support you to hit your goals? And when they hit their goals, have a great celebration. So I was just with one of my folks I coached down at Carolina's Healthcare, and she finished her master's this week. So we had a wonderful celebration on the phone. But more impressive was that her leader and her team brought in balloons, cake, a certificate, and they bought her a charm for her bracelet. This was a huge celebration for her. It was something she'd been working diligently for the last 2 years. And it all came together with great coaching, great partnership between, a great collaboration between her and her leader, and ultimately ended up in a wonderful celebration. And in our coaching session yesterday, she was just bouncing with joy. And you could just feel it. That can be the excitement of coaching. Yes, it's going to take some practice. Start with a star employee. It will be easier. They probably don't get as much recognition as they deserve, and they'll be so excited that you care about their career. So again, start with a superstar. Then when you want to move on to a more challenging conversation, practice it with a peer so that you're ready for the challenging ones. Next, and the final slide, remain curious. The reason I say that is often we've been working with people for a year, 5, 10, 15, in healthcare maybe 40 years. But that doesn't mean that they haven't changed and that they don't want to grow and develop. So don't put them in a box and say, oh, that's the person that is always going to be in this area. They're always going to be a histotech. Or they're always going to be a phlebotomist. No, be curious. Ask them questions. Give them some feedback and say, what is it that you're hoping to accomplish? And how can I help you hit the goals that you're trying for? Really get curious about what people care about. But also for you, share your own curiosity with your boss and say, here's what I want to learn. Here's how I grow. And I hope that part of it is that you use the I Grow model to have a coaching conversation with some of the people on your team and just be curious to see how it works. And maybe give me some feedback on how it went. So thank you for your attention. We'll now have some time for questions. I'm going to turn it back over to LabRoots so that we can address some of your questions in just a moment. Thank you.